Hey everybody, John Selby with the Selby team, and we're back for another episode of Fridays with the Fiddle Fig and our lovely Fiddle Fig here. Anyways, today I wanted to talk about a few things that you should consider before actually selling your house. And a lot of this is going to pertain to equity and your selling position. So I'm going to go through 5 things today that you should consider before selling your home. The first thing you want to consider, and it only applies if you have a mortgage, which most people will, is your mortgage, of course, and where your equity position is. So if you want to sell your house and not come out of pocket or not lose money, you want to look at how much you owe on the house versus what your house could possibly sell for. Because the last thing you want to do is sell a house, pay a commission, and then still have to come out of pocket because you owe more on your mortgage than what your house is actually sold for. So consider your mortgage in that. I tell clients, a rule of thumb is if they're planning to buy a house, they probably don't want to have to sell it for 3 to 5 years. It gives you enough time to build equity. It also gives you enough time to for the market to grow and your house value to go up. So I kind of combined 1 and 2 together, but number 2 would be your equity. So you want to look at how much equity you have, because that's truly the amount of property or the amount of the house that you might own. If you have a mortgage of $400,000, the bank technically owns $400,000 of your house. If the house is worth, let's say, $6,000, you own $200,000 of that house. And so you want to look at your equity position to make sure you have equity in your house when you do go to sell it. Number 3, or the third thing that I would tell somebody to consider, would be the potential capital gains tax that you may pay on the house. So in some markets, we've actually seen it here in San Diego, a person can buy a house and within a year they've made enough equity that they could sell the house for a profit. And what they get locked into if they've owned the house for less than a year would be what's called short-term capital gains, which is a pretty high percentage of your profits. So you've got to be careful of that. Now, if you have lived in a house, you're owner-occupied in a house for at least 2 of the past 5 years, then for each person owner, like say if you are an individual and you have a spouse, for each of you, you would protect $250,000 in capital gains on the property. So you could effectively have a $500,000 gain in what your house is worth from when you bought it, and you would not pay any taxes on that amount. Now, always consult with the CPA on those numbers because they can be a little bit different and tweak and change, but that's kind of our rule of thumb when we're talking with clients about what they can expect to do. Now, if it's an investment property, or if you haven't lived in it for that long of time, or maybe you're like a flip or something like that, you want to get in there, rehab it, and sell it quick, you're going to potentially have a short-term capital gains, which is a lot higher. So you have a couple options with that. You could 1031 exchange it, so you basically exchange that profit into another property, or you obviously don't sell it and you hold it for time being. So always something to consider in there is, what are you going to pay in taxes? If you have $200,000 in equity but you're paying $100,000 in taxes, maybe it's not the smartest move to sell right at that moment. So that's something you want to consider there. The next thing that you obviously want to consider when thinking about selling your house is the current market condition. What kind of a market are we in? What could your house sell for? What do you need to do to get your house to sell? Things like that. So considering the current market is another big factor in whether you're going to sell. Maybe houses are sitting on the market for 6 months to a year. That doesn't happen very often in San Diego, but again, maybe that is the market condition, and that may have a different that may put you with a different outcome or a different thought process than if, the market is selling in 4 days, or anywhere in between there. So considering the market condition is something you want to consider. And then the last thing, and this is going to be case by case, person by person, but look at your financial situation. What are you going to go do next? Are you selling the house to buy a bigger house? Are you selling the house to buy a smaller house? Are you moving out of state? Are you going to go rent? What are your plans, and do your finances and does your financial situation allow for you to be able to do that? Because the last thing we would want is a seller to sell a house and then go, oh, darn it, what do we do now? We can't buy the house we want to buy, or we can't move to the city we want to move to, or whatever. So, taking into consideration all these factors are very important before you actually decide to say, yes, I'm going to list my house. So when you're thinking about selling your house, these 5 things are really important to consider, and some of them we will ultimately help our sellers determine if it's the right choice. We're going to help you look at how much equity you may have. We're going to talk with you about market conditions. We can look at potential capital gains that you have, and some other things. It's important that you look internally and go, do I have a plan? Do I know what I'm going to do next? And am I comfortable with that? Because it takes all sides of it to make a sale the right decision for our seller clients, and we're here and happy to help you through that. So hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully this helps put some ideas in your head, some direction to start thinking about if you are possibly considering selling. And of course, if this brings up any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to chat through your personal circumstance or situation with you and see if you are in a spot where selling is the right move or right decision for you. So hopefully you enjoyed this week's episode of Fridays with the Fiddle Fig. I'm John Selby with the Selby team, and we'll see you next week.